Think of a place where people go searching for adventure, fun, and unforgettable memories, only for that same place to turn into horror within seconds. In different corners of the world, between zoos, safaris, jungles, and even private homes, one small mistake triggered a silent but deadly response from nature. Sometimes it was the risk taken for the perfect photo. Sometimes it was ignoring the rules. And sometimes it was pure overconfidence. What connects all these stories is not the animals themselves, but the single human mistake that changed everything between life and death. Berlin Zoo polar bear attack, April 10, 2009. It was a regular day at Berlin Zoo. Families walking around, children pointing at exhibits, polar bears looking enormous and calm from behind their barriers. Then a 32-year-old woman did something nobody could believe. She crossed the fencing, not by accident. One barrier after another, she kept going, deeper into the enclosure, as if the rules simply didn't apply to her. The worst possible timing. It was feeding time. The one moment polar bears are the most alert, the most territorial, the most dangerous. The second she hit the water, one of the bears locked onto her. First came curiosity, then aggression so fast it looked like a switch flipping. The bear bit down on her back and hands, dragging her through the water while people above screamed and scrambled. Zoo staff moved fast. Life buoys were thrown. A ladder went down. Workers used poles trying to force the bear back. Every second felt like it lasted longer than it should have. Eventually, they pulled her out. She was badly injured, deep wounds, serious blood loss, but she survived. That day, everyone watching learned the same lesson. A fence isn't just a suggestion. Helen Rodriguez lion attack, August 15, 2017. Masai Mara, hot, bright, perfect safari weather. 42-year-old Helen Rodriguez had planned this trip to celebrate her 20th wedding anniversary, and for a while it was exactly that. Beautiful. The Jeep was moving slowly, lions resting in the grass just ahead. The guide was clear: stay seated, stay inside, stay safe. Helen had her camera. The shot was right there. So she stood up, leaned over the edge of the vehicle, and reached out just a little further for the perfect angle. A big male lion turned his head and fixed his eyes on her. That one small movement, the exposure, the shift in position, changed his entire posture. Then she lost her balance. She fell, straight out of the Jeep, meters from that lion. The guide reacted instantly, revving the engine, making noise, forcing the lion back. It barely worked, but by then the damage was already done. Helen was airlifted to Nairobi Hospital with severe injuries. 6 hours later, she was gone. That day, everyone on that safari understood something they couldn't unlearn. The rules aren't there to ruin the moment. They're there because nature doesn't offer do-overs. Mike Hodge lion attack, April 30, 2018. Mike Hodge was not a careless tourist. He was a 72-year-old wildlife sanctuary owner in Limpopo, South Africa, who had raised a male lion named Shamba from a cub. He bottle-fed him, walked beside him, and spent nearly 10 years building what he believed was an unbreakable bond. Visitors at the Marikele Predator Sanctuary even watched Shamba climb directly onto safari vehicles during tours. On that morning, around 11:20 a.m., Mike was finishing one of those routine tours. Staff members used their normal safety method, distracting Shamba away from the exit gate while tourists sat inside a protective cage vehicle. But witnesses later said something suddenly changed. Shamba stopped, turned around, locked onto Mike, and sprinted back toward him with explosive speed. Mike ran for the vehicle, but lions can accelerate to nearly 50 miles per hour in short bursts. Before he could climb inside, Shamba slammed into him from behind, clamped onto his neck and jaw, and dragged him across the ground like a rag doll, according to witnesses. Tourists screamed while others shouted for rifles. The attack lasted terrifying seconds before gunshots rang out. To save Mike's life, Shamba was shot dead. Mike survived with a broken jaw, deep bite wounds, and massive blood loss after being airlifted to a Johannesburg hospital. Wildlife experts later repeated the same warning heard after countless predator incidents. Captivity may change behavior temporarily, but it never removes instinct completely. Charla Nash chimpanzee attack, February 16, 2009. On February 16, 2009, in Stamford, Connecticut, 55-year-old Charla Nash arrived at the home of her friend, Sandra Harold, expecting an ordinary visit. Inside that house lived Travis, a 200-pound chimpanzee raised almost entirely like a human. He drank wine from glasses, used keys to open doors, watched television, and had become a local celebrity after appearing in commercials and television shows. But beneath that human-like behavior was one terrifying fact. An adult chimpanzee possesses several times the pulling strength of a grown man, with dense, fast-twitch muscle fibers designed for climbing and violent dominance fights. That afternoon, Travis became agitated after seeing Charla holding one of his favorite toys. Sandra tried calming him using Xanax mixed into tea, but experts later said the drug may have worsened the confusion. Then, without warning, Travis exploded. Police reports described horrifying screams echoing through the neighborhood. Travis ripped apart Charla's face, crushed both hands, tore away tissue from her scalp, and caused catastrophic blood loss within minutes. Sandra desperately stabbed him with a butcher knife, shouting, "Stop it! Stop it!" But the chimp barely reacted. Officer Frank Chiafari arrived moments later and later said the animal looked almost impossible to stop. Even after being stabbed multiple times, Travis charged the police car and tried opening the passenger door before officers fired several shots. He eventually staggered back into the house and died. Doctors later revealed the full scale of the injuries. Charla lost her eyes, nose, lips, hands, and large portions of facial bone structure. The case became one of the most infamous primate attacks in modern history and triggered major debates about exotic pet ownership across the United States. The reticulated python that killed its owner, October 30th, 2019. On October 30th, 2019, police in Oxford, Indiana, entered a home belonging to 36-year-old snake collector Laura Hurst after she failed to appear for work. Inside, they discovered a scene investigators described as deeply disturbing. Laura's body was found unresponsive inside a room filled with more than 140 exotic snakes. Wrapped tightly around her neck was an 8-foot reticulated python. Laura was known in the reptile community as an experienced handler. Friends said she had cared for snakes for years and regularly handled large constrictors alone. But reptile experts later explained something critical about reticulated pythons. They are not aggressive in the emotional sense. Their attacks are mechanical. Once they identify prey or feel resistance, their instinct is simple: wrap tighter every single time the target exhales. According to researchers published in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences, large constrictors can stop blood circulation in seconds, often killing through cardiac arrest before actual suffocation occurs. Reticulated pythons are the longest snakes on Earth, capable of exceeding 20 feet and weighing more than 150 kilograms. Their muscular pressure can collapse ribs, restrict blood flow to the brain, and shut down organs rapidly. Investigators later believed Laura may have been handling or repositioning the snake when it suddenly coiled around her upper body. Alone in the room, there was nobody to intervene. No screams were reported by neighbors. No signs of forced entry, just silence. Emergency responders attempted life-saving measures, but she was pronounced dead at the scene. California's first recorded deadly black bear attack. In November 2023, the small mountain town of Downieville in Sierra County, California, became the center of a wildlife tragedy that stunned experts across the country. For the first time in recorded California history, a human being had been killed by a black bear. The victim was Patrice Miller, a 71-year-old woman who lived alone in a quiet home surrounded by forest. Neighbors later said bears had been appearing around the area more frequently. On November 8th, sheriff's deputies arrived at Miller's home for a welfare check after nobody had seen her for several days. What they found was horrifying. According to Sierra County Sheriff Mike Fisher, deputies immediately noticed a broken door, bear scat on the porch, and evidence of forced entry by a bear. Inside the home, they discovered Miller dead while the bear had apparently continued returning to the house repeatedly afterward. At first, investigators believed Miller may have died naturally before the animal entered the home, but months later an autopsy revealed the truth. DNA testing later matched the attack to a black bear that had already been captured and euthanized near the property. California wildlife officials explained that black bears usually avoid humans, but bears that become accustomed to human food sources can lose their natural fear. California is home to an estimated 25,000 to 35,000 black bears. The attack shocked wildlife experts because fatal black bear attacks in California had never been documented before. Pam Weaver wolf hybrid attack, November 5, 2011. People often think wolf-dog hybrids are just larger, more exotic versions of normal pets. What many do not realize is that their instincts can be wildly unpredictable, especially under stress. On November 5, 2011, in rural Pennsylvania, 46-year-old animal rescuer Pam Weaver entered the outdoor enclosure of a male wolf hybrid she had raised for nearly 6 years. The animal, named Coda, was part timber wolf and weighed over 120 pounds. Pam had rescued him as a young pup and believed years of bonding had made him completely safe around humans. Wildlife biologists explain that wolf hybrids can display conflicting behaviors because they combine domesticated dog traits with the social dominance instincts of wild wolves. Studies published by the International Wolf Center warn that hybrids often become harder to predict after maturity, especially males between 3 and 6 years old. That afternoon, Pam entered the enclosure alone carrying food buckets. Investigators later believed Coda became overstimulated during feeding and interpreted her body posture as submissive movement inside his territory. Suddenly, he lunged directly at her throat. Witnesses heard screaming and rushed outside, but by the time help arrived, the attack had already become catastrophic. The hybrid repeatedly bit her arms and neck while dragging her across the dirt enclosure. Emergency responders later confirmed severe arterial damage and massive blood loss. Pam died before she could be airlifted to a trauma center. Animal behavior experts later explained why the case was so disturbing. Wolves and wolf hybrids instinctively target vulnerable areas during dominance conflicts, especially the neck and face. Unlike many domestic dogs, they are far less responsive once predatory drive fully activates. Terry Thompson, Tiger Attack, October 18, 2011. On October 18, 2011, in Zanesville, Ohio, 62-year-old exotic animal owner Terry Thompson triggered one of the most horrifying wildlife disasters in modern American history. Thompson owned dozens of predators on his private property, including Bengal tigers, African lions, grizzly bears, wolves, and leopards. Neighbors had long reported hearing roars echoing across the countryside at night. That evening, something terrifying happened. Thompson opened multiple cages across the property, releasing nearly 50 exotic animals into the surrounding area before taking his own life. When sheriff deputies arrived, they entered what officers later described as a nightmare. Fully grown Bengal tigers weighing more than 400 pounds were wandering through fields and roads near residential neighborhoods. Investigators later reconstructed the final moments inside the compound. Evidence suggested one of the tigers had already turned aggressive toward Thompson shortly before his death. Wildlife experts explained that Bengal tigers possess bite forces around 1,000 psi and can kill prey with a single neck bite by crushing the spinal cord or collapsing the trachea. Unlike lions, tigers hunt alone and often rely on ambush behavior, making sudden close-range attacks extremely difficult to survive. As darkness fell, deputies made the controversial decision to shoot the roaming predators before they reached nearby homes. In total, nearly 50 animals were killed, including 18 rare Bengal tigers. Sheriff Matt Lutz later said officers faced seconds to decide between human lives and predators already loose. The incident shocked the entire country, not only because of the deaths, but because it exposed how quickly captivity can collapse into chaos. Darla Napora, Pit Bull Attack, August 23, 2011. On August 23, 2011, 32-year-old Darla Napora was alone inside her home in Pacifica, California. She was 6 months pregnant and spending the afternoon with the family's pit bull, a dog friend said she treated like a child. Darla was known as a passionate animal lover and regularly defended pit bulls online, even posting photos describing them as misunderstood pets. But sometime that afternoon, neighbors suddenly heard terrifying screams coming from inside the house. When emergency responders arrived around 3 p.m., they discovered a horrifying scene. Darla had been brutally mauled by the family dog inside the living room. Despite desperate attempts to save her, she died at the scene from catastrophic blood loss and severe trauma to the neck and upper body. Her unborn child also did not survive. Investigators later stated there were no signs of forced entry, abuse, or outside provocation. The attack appeared completely sudden. Animal behavior experts later explained that fatal canine attacks often involve rapid escalation behavior, where a powerful dog enters full predatory or territorial drive within seconds. According to studies published in the Journal of Forensic Sciences, severe dog attacks frequently target the face, throat, and limbs because those areas trigger instinctive restraint behavior in canines descended from hunting stock. The case became nationally controversial because friends revealed Darla had previously argued publicly that pit bulls were unfairly stereotyped. Her death reignited debates over dangerous dog ownership, breeding selection, and whether certain powerful breeds require stricter controls. The 8-foot python that killed a snake lover. On the evening of October 30th, 2019, emergency responders in Oxford, Indiana, were called to a home after reports of a woman found unresponsive near several exotic snakes. What investigators discovered inside shocked even experienced officers. The victim was Laura Hurst, a 36-year-old woman described by friends and family as a passionate reptile enthusiast who loved exotic snakes. According to police reports, the house contained around 140 snakes, including pythons and boas kept in glass enclosures throughout the home. Among them was an 8-foot reticulated python. Reticulated pythons are powerful constrictors capable of killing prey without venom. Research from the Journal of Experimental Biology shows large constrictor snakes tighten their coils each time a victim exhales, eventually stopping blood circulation and breathing. According to investigators, Hurst had been handling the snake alone that night. At some point, the python wrapped itself around her neck. Police later reported that when officers arrived, the snake was still tightly coiled around her body. Multiple responders struggled to remove it because of the animal's immense muscular strength. FoxNews.com. By the time paramedics freed Hurst from the coils, she was no longer breathing. Doctors later confirmed the cause of death as asphyxia caused by snake constriction. Herpetologists explain that even medium-sized pythons possess extraordinary muscle control. Unlike venomous snakes that strike once, constrictors continue squeezing instinctively until all movement from prey stops. Neighbors later described Hurst as someone who truly believed her snakes trusted her completely. But experts say reptiles do not form emotional bonds the same way mammals do. Their behavior is driven largely by instinct, feeding responses, and environmental triggers. Which attack shocked you the most? Comment below, subscribe for more terrifying true stories, and never underestimate wild nature again.